Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign is prepared for the possibility that former President Trump quickly declares an early victory on election night, even if the outcome is not settled in the swing states, as Trump did in 2020. Harris was asked about this scenario during an interview with NBC. Let's watch.
We are sitting here 2 weeks away from election night. Last election, the former president came out on election night and declared victory before all the votes were counted. What is your plan if he does that again in 2 weeks?
Well, let me say this. We've got 2 weeks to go. And I'm very much grounded in the present in terms of the task at hand. And we will deal with election night and the days after as they come. And we have the resources and the expertise and the focus on that as well.
So you have teams ready to go? Is that what you're saying? Are you thinking about that as a possibility?
Of course. This is a person, Donald Trump, who tried to undo a free and fair election, who still denies the will of the people, who incited a violent mob to attack the United States Capitol, and 140 law enforcement officers were attacked. Some were killed. This is a serious matter.
Now, the reality is that not every vote will be fully counted by election night. And as with 2020, if the race is close, it might not be decided until days after November 5th. According to NBC, several Trump allies predict that he will pull a repeat of 2020 and quickly declare his victory on election night. The move could signal to Trump supporters to be skeptical of the votes coming in and lead them to label the election as fraudulent. NBC writes that an early declaration of victory could be facilitated by what's known as a red mirage. That happens when Republicans appear to have a lead on election night because in-person votes are generally counted quickly, and that tends to be when Republicans vote. But that lead could disappear in the days after November 5th as absentee and early voting ballots, which tend to lean Democratic, get counted.
Meanwhile, top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, Representative Jamie Raskin, is panicking over Trump's failure to enter into certain agreements with the Biden administration for the presidential transition process. A letter sent to Trump and Vance, first obtained by NBC, Raskin wrote, quote, "Your actions depart from well-established norms of the federal government and demonstrate a spectacular disregard for the successful continuation of the essential institutions of American democratic government." My prediction is that regardless of who wins, the other camp, some people in it are going to say that the election was unfair and fraudulent, as has actually tended to happen in several of our close elections. It was not as big a thing in 2008 or 2000. 2008 was a blowout, so that was the closest thing we've had to a blowout in however many decades. Yeah. 2012 was closer than that, but maybe not close enough. But 2004, there were people in the Kerry campaign who said it was fishy. I can't remember what state it was they got all upset about. There was
Ohio, I believe it was.
It was Ohio. They all got all upset about. And then, of course, 2000 was actually a genuinely disaster where the winner was not clear because of the ballots being screwed up in Florida. Right. This election is going to be just as close, probably, if not closer than the last two elections. And so I predict there will be lots of people saying, no, you didn't win, we won, no matter who it is.
Well, I think that may be true, but again, we get back to Trump has never conceded any election that he has lost. Going back all the way to the Republican primary in 2016, Ted Cruz beat him in Iowa. He immediately claimed that there was some sort of chicanery going on there. And I think the reason, to be fair, that concerns are so acute this year is that back in 2020, there had been people publicly, I think including Steve Bannon, publicly saying that the plan was for Trump to declare victory as soon as possible, and then you would do what we alluded to in the introduction. You would then frame what was not that surprising, Democratic votes being counted from the early vote and from mail-in voting, as in some way fraudulent. And that's basically what happened. To make a sort of larger point about this, one of the things that frustrates me about the fictions of election fraud in 2020 was there was nothing surprising about the result in 2020. If anything, Trump did slightly better than the polls had predicted.
Yes, that was the surprise.
He did better. But the idea that there was something so obviously suspicious about what happened isn't true. Republicans have a tendency to vote more disproportionately on election day. Democrats have a tendency to vote more proportionately early voting and by mail, and so that is reflected as the result.
Yes, and the Republicans, Donald Trump specifically, discouraged people from voting early or by mail and instead said to vote on election day. Right. So it was not surprising that it was like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I'm sure Trump will say whatever he's going to say, and then they're going to finish counting the votes. And if Kamala Harris won, she's going to be president. And if Donald Trump won, he's going to be president. And I don't think either is going to successfully stand in each other's way. The efforts Trump undertook last time, they did not work. They were laughed out of court time and time again. I know there's a lot of panic that this time they've thought through this plan much more brilliantly, and they'll be more professional about stopping this deal. I don't see any evidence of that.
I mean, the idea that we take reassurance from the fact that, it probably won't work, that seems rather thin reassurance to me when we have a nominee of a major party and a former president, and who knows, perhaps future president. If he loses, we just expect him not to accept the outcome. Like, that in itself is very troublesome.
I think it's troubling, but not enough Americans agree, because he was easily won the Republican nomination to be the presidential candidate again, and this election is super, super, super close. Tens of millions of Americans, hundreds of millions of Americans will be voting for Donald Trump, and they don't see that, or if they see that as a negative, they think it is overcome by preferring his policies on the economy and immigration with respect to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. It's just not the slam dunk. It's not knocked him out of political consideration for millions of Americans.
No, it hasn't. I mean, it has been a remarkable, I hesitate to use the word political achievement, because I think what he did on January the 6th and leading up to it was terrible. But to survive that politically to the point where he has, at minimum, a 50-50 chance of getting elected again is an astonishment.
It is Napoleon-esque. Defeated, sent to Elba, escapes, returns, gets the entire French military, shoot at your emperor if you will. No, they join him, and Europe has to come back together, do it again.
If we're going to
once in a century human being wielding this much power and influence over the development of human civilization.
If we're going to raise Europe, which you do and our commenters do on YouTube quite a lot when I'm on, I should just say, in British and Irish elections, we vote by paper ballot. You mentioned in 2004 there was a rumpus from Democrats who at that time were complaining about machine ballots. They were saying, if you had paper ballots, none of this would happen. Now Republicans are tending to argue in favour of paper ballots because they're worried about Democrats or other foreign actors meddling with machines. I think you should adopt the European system, Robby, and have paper ballots.
As long as we don't use any more of those ballots that we used in 2000, the butterfly ballots.
Yeah.
Ooh, those are. Go Google it. Look it up. I challenge you to vote for the correct person on that ballot. It's impossible. All right, we've got much more Rising still to come on our show. Please stay tuned. We'll be talking about lots of interesting things. I'm not sure what, but I'll find out in just a minute.